Hi, I'm Don, your App Bazinga trainer. Google requires that all apps be signed with a certificate, whether for development or release. As you recall, in Eclipse, compiling means exporting. Eclipse comes with a signing certificate for the development or debugging process. It automatically sets debug to true so that we will be able to use that key and certificate during our debugging and testing. Creating our own certificate requires turning off the debug setting, so we'll cover that, and then we'll go through using the key and certificate for our own app. We've already created our App Bazinga app, downloaded it into Eclipse, and we've run through it a couple of times, so now we're ready to export it. Click on File, click on Export, go over and select Android, and in Android, Export Android Application, click Next. Click Browse, and we can load the project that we want to export. As we mentioned earlier, the debuggable attribute is set to true. So we're going to go out and get the debugging certificate. Since the debugging certificate already exists, we're going to use an existing key store, and we're going to have to browse and find it. It's typically located on your C drive under your user ID. In your username. In our case, it's out there under .android, and it should be in yours as well. What we are looking for is named debug.keystore, and we want to open it. The debug keystore password is Android. Since this keystore already exists, we won't have to confirm it as we would if we were creating a new one. The alias is Android debug key, and that already exists, so we enter the password here, which is also Android. Click Next. All Android apps have the file extension APK. Now we need to browse and find a location where we can store our finished debugging app so we can test it. I'm going to go out to my D drive, into my app builders, and find the folder that we used before. It starts out named as our project, so we want to change the name to our app name, which I've done here. Click Save. When you click Finish, it will actually create the app in debug mode. You'll notice that the debug certificate is good for 30 years. What we've created is a debuggable version of our little DMC40 frog icon app. It's out there in the folder where we saved it and can be moved over to your Android device so that you can see it in its real form on your Android. Now let's create our own signing certificate so we can actually distribute our app. As you recall, the debugging attribute is set to true automatically. So what we have to do is go back and turn that off. In our project, we are looking for a file named androidmanifest.xml. It opens with a click, and we can see a tab called androidmanifest.xml. This is the location of the debug true or false tag. Let's move over so that we can see it a little bit better, and scroll down until we find Android debuggable equal true. It is in the Android name section. The editor supports several ways of editing a line. I found the simplest way is simply to highlight the word true and change it to false. Then I click on Run. It'll ask me if I want to save it, and yes, I do. And now it has actually saved and created the new version. Now let's create a signing certificate for our own app. You know the routine by now. Click on File, Export, Export Android Application. Now we need to browse, click Load Our App, click on Next. We have to create a new key store. Click on Browse because we'll need to find a place to put it. And I'm going to go out to the same location where I found the debug key store. I'm going to name it after my app.keystore. That way I'm consistent in my naming. At this point, I suggest that you make a written copy of the name of your key store, the alias and password that you're going to use for the key store, and the alias and password you're going to use for the key. The area I've highlighted in yellow above provides ongoing helpful messages as you go from section to section. I'm using a key alias that relates to the app that I'm creating. When you create your password, be sure and use long, strong passwords, and be sure and record them, because if you lose them or can't recall what they are, you'll have a very difficult time supporting your app as you distribute it. Validity is the number of years that you want your app to remain active. Enter your first and last name. Organizational unit and organization tend to refer to companies that are doing software development. However, in our case, it could be something like App Bazinga Developer and App Maker, but it needs to be something related to you, what you're doing, and the kind of apps that you are making, in particular the app that you've just created. Finish filling out the form with your city or location, with the state or province if you're in a country other than the U.S., and your country code. That's the 2-character code. Then click on Next. After you've done this a few times, it becomes pretty straightforward. Now that we have our key, we need to browse and find a location where we want to store our app. I like to do things in a consistent fashion, so I'm going to go back out to the same location where I stored my debugging app in order to store my developed distributable app. I'm going to name it DMC-release so that it has a slightly different name than the name I gave my debugging app. That way I can find it when I'm ready to upload it to my Android. Click Next and your distributable app is done. Here's a little bonus. Let's say that you've gone back to App Bazinga, made a couple of adjustments, and added a couple of features to your app. Downloaded it back into Eclipse, saved it, and checked it to make sure there are no errors or mistakes. Now we're going through the process of recompiling and making our app ready for distribution in the Eclipse compiler. As you can see, now that we have our key set, it's a very straightforward process. We're going to click Next, click on Finish, and we've got an updated app all ready to load back up into the app marketplace for Android.